We actually have live online our colleagues in Ecuador. And good morning to all of you. There you are. I thought it might be useful just for you to have a glimpse of how a country such as Ecuador is addressing climate change precisely in terms of the challenges that you outlined, President, but also in terms of the offer that UNDP can bring to these national processes. Because we know that not only the Secretary General's Climate Summit later this year is a major moment for the international community to refocus on how it will work together on this issue, we also have for next year the challenge of the national determined contributions, the national climate strategies being updated, a higher level of ambition emerging. And the challenging news is we are not moving fast enough. The good news is that there are many countries, such as Ecuador, that we will hear from just now, that are actually showing the way, and we are very proud to have been partners there. So I know our team was indicated not more than 4 or 5 minutes, so with your permission, maybe invite them? Marta, over to you.
Thank you. Morning, Mr. President, board members, Mr. Administrator, and UNDP. It's for the Ecuador office and to be part of this interactive dialogue. And
we can't hear you.
In the climate sphere.
Can you bring your microphone closer to you because we can't hear you very well?
Ana Maria Núñez, Program Officer, and Fernando Andrade, who is the coordinator of UNDP's NDC support program. So let me start with a bit of context. Ecuador is at the forefront of climate action and at the forefront in the NDC formulation. It is one of the first NDCs that have been presented for the 2020 round. Now, Ecuador presented an INDC in Paris, but decided that it wanted to raise the ambition already then. So after several years of work, it is now presenting the NDC, which is actually the first also done fully according to the guidelines that were agreed in Katowice last year. A couple of features of this NDC. First of all, it's aligned to national priorities according to the National Development Plan, and it's aligned to Agenda 2030 and a number of SDGs. Secondly, it has been formulated in an extremely participatory way, with over 150 organizations participating from private and public sector, academia and civil society. More than 1,000 persons participated, and we actually applied also innovative methodologies and design thinking in doing this formulation. Important to stress that across ministries, all relevant ministries have been involved, including the National Disaster Risk Reduction System and local government. So we are ensuring a coherent and whole of government approach in this NDC. And finally, a particular feature is that UNDP's NDC support program provided methodologies for gender mainstreaming in the formulation process. It's also a first, I understand, and we thank the government of Ecuador for embracing this approach. Now, what is UNDP's role in this process? Just a couple of comments. First of all, I would like to highlight the use of our network of knowledge, expert, and resources. This is the global policy network in action, and it's something that we should be very proud of. Secondly, we also integrated sister UN agencies. For instance, UN Women was involved in the gender mainstreaming component, and FAO gave technical assistance for agriculture, forestry, and other land use sectors. We also acted, of course, as integrator of the different sectors and national actors mentioned before. This would not have been possible without the support of our donors. I would in particular like to thank the European Union, Germany, Norway, Spain, and Italy, which in some way or another have been involved in this process. And as Achim mentioned, also GEF and GCF funding are crucial in these processes. Now, UNDP has been supporting climate action in Ecuador for 15 to 20 years already, and ongoing efforts are, of course, part of the NDC implementation going forward. For instance, we have a large GCF and GEF funded program in the Amazon working with indigenous people, rural communities. And we're not only helping Ecuador to fulfill commitments in the environmental and climate change field, but also addressing poverty reduction. And I think UNDP is uniquely positioned to act in this intersection between environmental sustainability and poverty reduction. Now, finally, a call for action. Ecuador will follow up on this NDC with an action plan, a financing strategy, and a monitoring system. And a continued support from the international community is, of course, key. We as UNDP stand ready to continue supporting. And finally, the climate summit. We will meet in September. We know this is urgent. We know we need to raise the ambition, and Ecuador will be happy to continue sharing its experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that intervention and explanation of what you are doing in Ecuador. And I now invite the distinguished permanent representative of Ecuador.
Mr. Chair, I would like to thank the Executive Board, Akim Steiner, and Matilde Mordt, resident representative of UNDP in Ecuador, and her team for their work and for sharing with the membership the experience in supporting my country with the development, implementation, and enhancement of our national determined contribution under the Paris Agreement. Ecuador's NDC reflects our commitment to combat climate change. Its adverse impacts undermine the ability of all countries to achieve sustainable development. Time and actions are already overdue. The support of the UNDP to the government of Ecuador has truly been a positive experience. We had a participative process with the interaction of nearly 150 institutions and 900 actors in several technical meetings and workshops that include the public and private sectors, academia, civil society, and international cooperation representatives with a gender approach. This methodology fostered participants to become agents of change and be committed for the implementation of the NDC. UNDP was particularly helpful in issues relating to mitigation, including data processing, identification of barriers and opportunities by sector, determining baselines and sectorial mitigation scenarios, and consolidating information and scenario proposals. Ecuador has become a regional and world referent by formulating an NDC due to its participative nature and also for using the guidelines approved at COP24 and at UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement rulebook having an update commitment. And that we have our NDC, now that we have our NDC, we have to continue working on our implementation plan, our follow-up, review and verification system, increasing means of implementation, adequate financing, capacity building and transfer of technology, generating synergies with relevant stakeholders and strengthening a gender approach. For all these matters, we will require the support of UNDP. Other projects related to sustainable development can also be structured and implemented nationally and locally, jointly the UNDP, such as the areas of combating plastic pollution, energy transition, biodiversity protection, forest, land and degradation, and drought, disaster risk reduction, and the attending social and environmental pressure on the Galapagos Islands. We congratulate and thank UNDP for its constructive and effective support, and we look forward to continuing working together. Thank you, Chair.